All right. Good morning. Habibit, would you please move it to the next slide? So I'm in Spokane County, and because my state isn't shaped like a hand, I've got a map to show you. We are on the absolute east side bordering Idaho, and I work for the county library. So just to keep things really straightforward, Spokane County's biggest city is called Spokane. And the city of Spokane has their own library system, and we are the library system that surrounds the city with one other dot, Liberty Lake, who's their own library. But we have 11 locations, and I primarily work on the north side of the county that borders two other counties and a different state. So slightly different challenges in meeting the needs of a lot of people who aren't even necessarily our library users in regards to card holders. So my backstory is I met Carlton in 2014. Spokane County Library District was one of the 10 libraries chosen to be part of the original American Library Association's Libraries Transforming Communities cohort. So being part of that cohort and going through the Harwood training was grant driven. We signed a paper saying we would. So we had to do all the things, and we had to do them on a timeline set by ALA and the Harwood Institute. So that while I went to training and then I came back and I thought about what I might want to do, we really had to get on the ball. And that first round in 2014 to 2015, over the course of about 8 months, we hosted in our, at that time, 10 locations, 76 community conversations. And from these community conversations, we used the information and what we heard from our community to inform our strategic plan, which we actually called the Community Engagement Plan, and it was 2016 to 2018, so a 3-year community engagement plan. And so in thinking about Carlton's questions, really that idea of turning outward for me, and I would say for my organization, has been a cultural shift around the idea that engagement is different than advocacy. And so often we're still using the word engagement when we should be saying advocacy. We actually asked what people wanted most in their community, and then we responded to it, as opposed to, again, guessing at what they want, assuming with what they want, telling them what they want. And when we started, one of our first projects actually from what we heard and what we observed, and that sort of match of that sweet spot, let me use the Harwood term for it, even between our public knowledge and our expert knowledge as being community members and active, we revitalized a park. Habiba, will you move to the next slide, please? So in September of 2015, the library that I primarily work at is the Deer Park Library. And we have this beautiful building with these gorgeous windows that look out on this green space that was and is a city park. And it had just kind of fallen to trash and abuse and misuse. And we rallied the city and its people around cleaning it. And in September, we hosted the first, what is now an annual, so the inaugural park cleanup. And how we managed to do it was by partnering with a Eagle Scout candidate. And we said, well, we'll take on, making it city property. So we'll take on that side of it, getting the city behind this idea. If you'll take on, raising some of the money and rallying volunteers. And it was about a 6-month process, because we heard in our community conversations, people wanted a beautiful city, beautification. It was a big deal. And this was something that, was that kind of perfect place to start. And so surprised that day in September, 115 people showed up to clean this 2-acre park parcel. We took out more than 150 bags of debris. And, some of it, of course, is just down pine needles that had been blocking all of the, clearing the paths. And Habib, will you move to the next slide, please? This is the after. I mean, it's lovely. It's a very natural space. And it has been such a pleasant experience. The city has rallied behind it so much. And if you'll move to the next one, they actually renamed the park. Oh, I guess that comes later. I think my slides are a little out of order. It's okay. Anyways, the city named the park the Library Park, and the Deer Park community hosts their own annual cleanup at this point. We are invited to participate and no longer invited to lead the charge. It's been a great success in this idea of, we heard what you wanted, and we found a common thing to start from that we could all rally around. And it was an immediate success, and it was something that we all felt good about. And there we are. We were able to build off of that. And it's just that relationship of, who gets things done? The library does. Yeah. So this was part of the fundraising efforts. We paid for through fundraising both by the Boy Scout and through our friends of the library and a local hospital, and we had these signs put up. And you can see then that the library is there in the corner, and that's the green space of the park behind it. And one of the other things that we heard a lot about in Deer Park was food scarcity. And this is one of those like Band-Aid kind of things where let's do a food drive and feed people for a week. Or what can we do that actually has more impact? And we became a CACFP, a child and adult care food program, after school snack site. And Habiba, now if you'll find that slide with the kids in it with a cart, that is the slide with this. Yeah. Yes. So we, after school, we're a whopping 3 blocks from the local elementary school, and there are no after-school programs anywhere in the city of Deer Park. So kids come to the library, and they stay there until their parents pick them up, much later in the evening sometimes. I'm sure that this sounds like a very familiar thing to a lot of people. And we were having issues with just, petty disturbances. Kids they need something to do to keep them going. And, the computers are full. We've got games out. We've got Legos out. We've increased programming. So there's something to keep their hands busy. But when you're hearing about food scarcity, and the quote I always share was from a parent who said, "I'm not worried about homework when I'm trying to put food on the table." So in March of 2016, we started the snack program and partnered with that school 3 blocks away, who had some extra funding to pay for tutoring. And teachers actually came to the library, and there were like 80 kids in this program, and they would get snack from us, they would browse for books, and then they would be tutored by the teaching staff. Unfortunately, funding only lasted through this school year of 2016 for tutoring, but because the CACFP is a federal program, we're still doing it at the library. And actually, what are we at? 2.5 years. And last month, we just passed 15,000 snacks. So we have handed out more than 15,000 snacks in 2.5 years to kids, just between the hours of 3 and 4 p.m., Monday through Friday, when the library is open. Habiba, will you move to the next slide? Hopefully it's the next slide. Yes. So some other things that we did to, not just come up with a Band-Aid fix, but to sort of just raise awareness about the resources we have, is we put out a produce swap table. And we are not the first library to come up with this, but this is one of the easiest things I think we've ever done. It is literally a table with that checkered tablecloth and a sign with very deliberate language that explains that everything on this table is given freely. It's not for barter or trade, and people do bring in their extra garden supplies. Like, how many zucchinis does any one person really need? And people take from it. And on the left side, that is a picture of one of the other partnerships we did. We did enrichment activities at free lunch sites. Recognizing where kids were in the summer is where the food was. And we brought stuff to them to do. And where this all comes back to is, instead of guessing what our community wanted, we asked the questions, and then we responded authentically. And I can say, here we are, this, wrapping up another, strategic planning process, that we have moved the needle and actually had impact in this area. So with our community engagement plan wrapping up this year, these last 6 months have been spent writing the next one and using the same kinds of tools with community conversations and asking what community's aspirations are and what are the issues and the barriers to the success. And in the Deer Park area, where food scarcity was such a big thing in 2014 and 2015, it didn't come up at all this time. And it doesn't mean we need to stop doing what we're doing, but it does feel like we did things right. Yeah. As a organization, we have very much shifted culture to recognize the difference between engagement and advocacy. And it's become just, you write a strategic plan, you've got your mission, you've got your visions, your core services, your guiding principles, and your community responsive. Like, what do they actually want that we can be part of?